You know that feeling of being, well, you. But what if that you, your consciousness, isn't actually where you think it is? In this explainer, we're asking a pretty wild question. Are you really more than just your brain? So let me ask you, if I said point to where you are, where would you point? Probably right to your head, right? For ages, that's been the assumption. Our consciousness or sense of self is all locked up in the brain. But what if that's just not the full picture? What if you is actually spread out through your entire body? Okay, so before we dive off the deep end, let's just get on the same page. What even is consciousness? Basically, it's your own personal awareness of yourself and everything around you. It's that subjective, totally unique experience of being alive. The movie that's always playing inside your head just for you. And yeah, it's way more than just being awake. It's about that subjective experience, like how the color red looks to you specifically. It's also being aware that you are aware. And maybe the most amazing part is how it takes all this chaotic input, sights, sounds, thoughts, and seamlessly stitches it all together into one unified, continuous stream. That's your life story, playing out in real time. All right, so for the longest time, when scientists were hunting for consciousness, they had one main suspect, the brain. Specifically, that big, wrinkly outer part, the cerebral cortex. It was considered the command center, right? The CEO of you, Inc. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense at first glance. But what we know now is that the brain isn't just a bunch of separate departments. It's more like a collection of highly specialized teams or networks that all work together. You've got the default mode network, which is kind of like your brain's screensaver. It kicks in when you're daydreaming. But the second you need to get something done, the central executive network jumps in. They're constantly chatting, passing the baton back and forth to create our smooth mental experience. Okay, but here's where the plot really thickens. All that stuff we just mentioned, the focused mind, the daydreaming mind, all of it, that's just what we're aware of. It's like the tiny, tiny tip of a massive iceberg. The real heavy lifting is happening way down below the surface, totally out of sight. Now, when you hear the word unconscious, you probably think of Freud, right? This dark, spooky basement in your mind filled with hidden desires? Well, forget that. The modern view is way different and honestly, way cooler. Think of your unconscious mind as this incredibly powerful operating system that's always running in the background. It's the autopilot that handles everything from breathing to driving home on a route you know by heart. And this is where things get really, really wild. Your brain isn't just sitting there passively taking in the world like a camera. No way. It's actively predicting what's going to happen next. I mean, have you ever tried to proofread your own writing? It's almost impossible, right? That's because your brain expects to see the right word, so it just fills it in for you. What you experience isn't raw reality. It's more like a controlled hallucination. Okay, so the brain is a prediction machine. Fine. But what data is it using? We've always assumed it's all about what's coming in from the outside, our eyes, our ears. But what if the most crucial information isn't coming from out there, but from in here? What if the brain isn't so much a general giving orders, but more of a skilled listener, tuned into a conversation happening all throughout your body? Check out this number, 600 million. That's roughly how many neurons are in your gut. Yeah, your gut. This network is so incredibly complex that scientists have literally nicknamed it our second brain. And the craziest part? It can learn, hold memories, and make decisions all by itself, without even checking in with the main office up in your skull. And it doesn't stop there. Your heart, it has about 40,000 of its own specialized neurons. This heart brain isn't just a pump. The research points to the idea that it's involved in memory and decision-making. All of a sudden, that old saying, follow your heart, starts to sound a whole lot less like a metaphor, doesn't it? Okay, get ready for this one, because it kind of flips neuroscience on its head. More than half, let that sink in, more than half of all the neurons in your brain aren't even in the big thinking part, the cortex. They're crammed into the cerebellum, that little bit at the back that we used to think just handled balance. Turns out, it's a major player in complex thought. This web of intelligence just keeps getting deeper. You've got the gut-brain axis, which is this constant two-way highway of information between your gut microbes and your brain that affects your mood, your anxiety, pretty much everything. And then, maybe the most mind-blowing discovery of all is that mitochondria, the little powerhouses inside every one of our cells, they seem to store memories too. Memory isn't just locked in your head. It's literally everywhere in your body. So when you put all this together, if you have these intelligent networks in your gut and your heart, and if you have memories stored in your very cells, it forces us to ask a really uncomfortable, really radical question. Just how essential is the brain, the one in our head, for us to actually be conscious? Let me tell you a story. Back in the 80s, a university student goes in for a checkup, and what they find is just unbelievable. His brain had been almost completely squeezed away by fluid in his skull. It was just this tiny layer, less than a millimeter thick. And yet, this guy graduated with a first-class honors degree in mathematics. Or how about this one? A woman discovered in 2014 who was born completely without a cerebellum. Remember, that's the part that's supposed to have over half of the brain's neurons. On paper, she should barely be able to function. But in reality, she was married, she had a kid, she lived a totally independent life. And one more, a French civil servant. He goes to the doctor because his leg feels a little weak. They do a scan, and they find his skull is almost completely filled with fluid. His actual brain tissue, just a thin film squished against the inside of his skull. And this guy had been holding down a job and raising a family for decades, living a completely normal life. How? How is any of that even possible? How can you think and feel and be aware of yourself when what we thought was the most essential organ is, well, mostly missing? These real-life cases don't just poke holes in our old theories, they completely shatter them. So how do we explain this? Well, a couple of really powerful ideas are starting to take shape. The first is what you might call distributed intelligence, the idea that those other neural networks in our gut and heart are way more powerful than we ever gave them credit for. The second is cellular memory, this idea that the mitochondria in every single cell are processing and storing information, creating this incredibly resilient body-wide cognitive system. When you look at all the evidence, the conclusion seems almost inescapable. Consciousness isn't some single light bulb that turns on in one spot in your brain. It's looking more and more like a symphony. It's something that emerges from the entire biological system working together in harmony. It's a phenomenon of the whole body. And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. It has huge real-world consequences, especially when it comes to healing. For a long time, we focused on top-down approaches, like talk therapy, where you try to change how you feel by changing how you think. But if consciousness is a whole-body thing, then we also need bottom-up approaches, therapies that start with the body's physical sensations, because the body remembers things the conscious mind can't or won't touch. Here's a simple example. Think of someone who smokes. Consciously, they know all the risks. Their thinking brain is totally on board with quitting, but they can't. Why? Because their body's intelligence, the deeply ingrained habits, the cellular cravings, is the one actually calling the shots. It's like the body has a mind of its own. So that brings us full circle, right back to the beginning, but with this massive new perspective. If you are not just your brain, if your intelligence, your memories, your very sense of self are woven into the fabric of your entire body, it leaves us with one last huge question. Where do you really end?